Augusttown Chapter 2. The distant past comes back to us, usually as a shock, an echo that has escaped its own fleetingness, that has widened so wide and so quickly we have slipped inside it without being ready. It comes, then, as a panic in the heart, a widening of the eyes, an O of the mouth. In the days of the flying preacher man, Ma Taffy was the same age that Kaya is now. It does not surprise her that she was once a little girl. It surprises her only that she is now so many years away from that time. In them years long ago, there was a church here in Augusttown, Ma Taffy says, as if from far away. They call it Union Camp. It was a church for poor people, but they built the chapel bigger than hospital, and with walls that was clean as Dettol. So you can imagine that Babylon was afraid of this church. Them did afraid of it like puss. Poor people built the church right down here in the valley, but to Babylon eyes, it was like the church was already on top of Mount Zion. The stones they used to build the church was big and white and in the shape of diamonds. It was over 300 strapping men who farm a line from the river all the way to the church building site, and they passed the stones from hand to hand. That's how we did work in them long ago days. But yes, is the preacher man I want to tell you about. The preacher man who did charge of that very church. He was a very special man. Yes, very special. Ma Taffy sighs. It's plenty years now that him dead. They bury him in the graveyard close by the church, the place I hear people call Duppy Lane these days. Kaya shivers a little and pulls himself closer to this woman he thinks of as his grandmother. Like everyone in Augusttown, he knows the Bedward graveyard, and like everyone under the age of 10, he is afraid of that place. He wonders if it is a Duppy story his grandma is about to tell him. After all, men can't fly, but Duppies definitely can. The preacher's name was Alexander Bedward, and it's him who did tell me one day that he was going to fly. Kaya's eyes flicker over a memory, but then they fall flat. He pouts his disappointment. I know the story already. He takes his thumb from his mouth and begins to sing a song he has learnt at school. Guess what? Bedward jump and Bedward broke him neck. Bedward jump and Bedward broke him neck. Ma Taffy grips her cane and brings it down hard on the wooden deck of the veranda. You was there? She asks through gritted teeth. Kaya stops and resumes his sulking. He is not used to this kind of tone from his grandma. Me ask if you was there, Ma Taffy insists. No, Kaya whispers. I never did there. Well then, hush up your blasted mouth and don't try to tell me things that you don't even know, or things that Babylon decide to tell you. The old woman swallows. She wonders why this little song has made her so upset this afternoon, and why she would take it out on Kaya. He is just being his usual little boyish self. She counsels herself with even more firmness. Steady, old woman. What's wrong with you today? It is a quiet afternoon, but the kind of quiet that is full of everyday sounds. There is wind in the tall breadfruit trees and in the shorter croton plants. The mongrel dogs of Augusttown are calling to and answering each other. Radios are on in every house, and so the cantankerous talk show host Mutty Perkins is in a kind of chorus with himself. And in another lane, not far away, it sounds as if Mr. Desmond is once again having brutal sex with his common-law wife Monica, for there is a distinct sound of the banging zinc, and behind it Monica shouting every conceivable profanity, so much so that Augusttown is growing humid with her curse words. Sometimes Mr. Desmond and Monica's carryings on really do grow frighteningly loud. Monica screaming out, "Murder!" or "Him a go kill me!" But even on such occasions, no one dares intervene, because past experience has taught them that Monica herself will march out completely naked, her eyes swollen, and yet still she will hurl stones at whoever has interrupted her and her man, telling them point blank, "Cockroach no business in a foul fight." Suddenly, another woman shouts from a house in the same lane, "Come now, man, come now, I'm waiting on you." Ma Taffy frowns. This is Sister Gilzine, of course, one of the oldest living persons in Augustown, a childless spinster who for months now has been losing her mind, waiting on death and calling it upon herself. Every day she can be heard half praying and half cursing on the mattress from which she can no longer rise. "Stupido old woman," Ma Taffy says, though there is a sympathy in her voice that does not quite match the harshness of her words. She was there as well, Ma Taffy now remembers. All of 62 years ago, Sister Gilzine was there. "Grandma, tell me the story," Kaya says. Ma Taffy stands up as if to be by herself. "Bedward did fly," she whispers at last. "He did really fly." And then she gasps, for here it is, the small panic of the heart, the widening of the eyes, the O of the mouth. Oh, 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 the past. Before she changed her name by deed poll to Irie Tafari, which in due course was shortened to Miss Taffy, which in due course, with the onset of silver hair, wrinkles, and 3 nieces she looked after, becoming their virtual mother, was further shortened to Ma Taffy. She had had another name, Irene Mackenzie. She had lived with her mother and a man who, it had been explained to her, was not quite her father, but rather the gentleman with whom her mother, Nora, was in conversation. That is how such things were said in those days. The ongoing conversation between Miss Nora and her gentleman, Mas Bilby, eventually produced 3 daughters, Irene's younger sisters, who would all move away from Augustown when they were older, but who would each, after they felt they had already produced their allotted portion of children, send the last surprise fruits of their womb off to Augustown to grow up with their aging aunt. And so, this is how, without even having given birth herself, Ma Taffy ended up mothering Tisha and Beverly and Gina. Indeed, Ma Taffy imagines the 3 girls as her own daughters, and the 3 girls, though they are technically cousins, imagine each other as sisters. Ma Taffy remembers her mother's gentleman, Mas Bilby, as a man with a broad face and an even broader smile. He had worked variously as a cow-herder on the Papine estate, as a fieldman, as a saddler, and as a mason, but his most consistent work was as a petty thief, which is why he was never able to keep the other jobs, which, in any case, did not pay him as much as his occasional larceny. His long bouts of unemployment led to intense bickering in the house, heated conversations between himself and Nora, and yet Mas Bilby was a man of certain principles. He made it a point to go out every morning, whatever the nature of the work, legal or illegal, and to come home each evening before it was fully dark. And although he stole, Mas Bilby tithed a portion of all his earnings to the church. By rights, he should never have been called Mas Bilby, but simply Bilby. The respectable title was not usually assigned to those who persisted in such disrespectful careers as his, and yet, through his own will and his own vision of himself, which were strong enough to bend people to his way of seeing, and also through the sheer breadth of his chest, which sometimes seemed to take up the whole road when he was out walking, It seemed impossible to call him simply Bilby. So he was Mas, and everyone accepted him as the most respectable thief in August Town. Mas Bilby used to play a game when he got home in the evenings. He would take a deep breath, close his eyes tight, and then try to identify what had been cooked for dinner. Opening his eyes at last and smiling his broad smile, he would sit down at the table and say, "I wonder what it is my good woman has cooked today. I hope it is." And here he would identify the dish which Nora had indeed cooked. Nora played along and often tried to make it difficult. She put things into the pot that were not supposed to go together. In this way, she had stumbled upon creative cooking and frequently dished out a kind of gourmet fare. Nora it was who made curried oranges and beef, who invented sardine rundown, and who made up what would eventually become her most famous soup, fish and ackee in a coconut broth. But for such a big man, Mas Bilby's nose was delicate and discerning. He could detect things hidden under things, and so he almost always guessed right. When he did, he would lift his head to the sky and roar good-naturedly, "Lord, what a blessing of a woman is this, for know exactly what my mind did give me to eat today." On the day that bedward began to rise, Ma Taffy would always remember Mas Bilby had said his mind had given him to eat stew peas. "I wonder what my good woman has cooked for me today," he had said, sitting down and sniffing the air. The smell of stew peas was so obvious that he sniffed the air again, wondering if he had missed something. No, it really was only stew peas. One of his favorite dishes. He smiled. "I really hope it is stew peas. Stew peas with a piece of pig's tail in it. Yes, that is exactly what my man give me to eat today." Nora walked to the table with a mound of steaming white rice. On top of it was the purple spread of stew peas. From the corner where she was sitting quietly, Irene saw that her mother had dished the meal out on one of her good plates, and broad blue and white dish with the king's insignia in the middle. Nora then poured Mas Bilby a generous portion of coconut water, not in his usual black-rimmed enamel cup, but in the special glass she liked to call her good crystal. Mas Bilby was quiet and eyed Nora through the slant of his eyes as he shoveled 3 tablespoons of the food immediately into his mouth. Nora shifted her weight from foot to foot. She wrung her hands. "Anything else you want?" she shuddered. Mas Bilby nodded, but it took him a while to swallow the hot food. Rolling his neck like a snake, the food finally went down into his gullet, and he spoke. "I want one more thing. I want you to tell me whatever it is you have on your mind to tell me. Nora, if you ever see yourself, it's like you're almost ready to burst." "Chum man," Nora said dismissively, as if to be coy, but then she shook herself and pulled up a chair beside Mas Bilby. Mas Bilby was surprised at the quickness of this, and indeed it was this way that little Irene understood that the thing her mother was about to say was important. Irene waited, then for the inevitable, for her mother or for Mas Bilby to look over to the corner where she was sitting and instruct her to leave the room. She was used to being dismissed whenever adults were speaking. "We's having a big people conversation," they would tell her. "Go on and find something else to do. Your ear's too small for this." But Irene was not dismissed, and she wondered for a short while if it meant that she was officially a big person. She decided, however, just to be safe, that she should remain very, very quiet with her ears wide open. "Something strange had been happening to Master Bedward," Nora began. "His sister Liz who come here earlier today and tell me herself. And you know she's not the kind to gossip. especially not about her own husband. It was an understatement. Sister Liz was a kind of woman who seemed to make it a point not to say anything at all. She usually spoke only with her eyes, which were aloof and judgmental. That she had come to the house to confide in Nora must have meant this was serious business indeed. "So, what kind of strange we talking?" Bilby asked. "The strangest are strange. I will tell you how Sister Liz tell me. She said that she wake up at the unknown hour yesterday night because a cool breeze from the river did come into the bedroom. She said it was sharp, sharp breeze, like it did want to freeze off her two legs. She never even think to open her eyes and look. She just reach over for a piece of sheet that she usually share with Bedward. But no matter how she was patting down the bed, her hands couldn't find the sheet. She reached over a little further to touch her husband, but she couldn't find him neither. It was then that she opened her eyes and tried to see in the dark. She said she was getting real confused, for though she could hear him snoring close by, like he was still beside her, she didn't see him none at all. She even started to wonder if, at his big-ass steering age, he managed to roll off the bed like some little picnic. Well, she looked over the left side, and she looked over the right side, but he wasn't there. At last, she looked up to the ceiling, and that's where him was." "In the ceiling?" "Yes, up in the ceiling." "Then his climb up there?" "No, that is a strange thing. He must just afloat. And Nancy Cobweb did wrap up all about him face, and the bedsheet did wrap round him body." "That gone beyond strange," Master Bilby muttered, the stew peas now all but forgotten. "Sister Liz tell me that she was to creep up out of the bedroom. She was trying not to wake him up. She get her two grown boys to come and help her. The three of them had to pull him down real gentle, cause maybe if he wake up too sudden, he just fall and go broke his neck." "That is what happens when people float in the air." "Who to tell? You can't take no risk with these things. You have to be careful." "So he stay on the bed for the rest of the night?" "More or less it seemed. Liz said she did still say that he was floating a little, but he never go all the way up to the ceiling again. And in any case, she make sure to make her hands round him for the rest of the night. Come morning now, and Bedward begin to notice it himself. He complained that he was feeling real light, a feeling like he didn't have any weight on him at all. Sister Liz had to tell him with a straight face, 'My dear husband, it's because you have begun to float.'" "Jesus, Father," Master Bilby whispered. "What all this could mean, though?" Nora was silent for a moment. "I don't know, Bilby. I've been thinking about it all day. I don't know." "Floating? Sons of war arise, sons of war arise." He hummed the chorus a little. "The one that was the song I was singing in church yesterday." Nora smiled at him. "What a thing, don't he? To float like feather, or like Ezekiel lifted up into the chariot. It must mean something good." Master Bilby enthused, but his face immediately became less sure. "Don't you think so, Nora?" He asked this with great earnestness, and for all his bulk, he seemed almost boyish at this moment. "Don't it must mean something good?" Nora bit her lip and observed the man who, despite her best efforts, she continued to love. She knew the kind of redemption he was looking for. He was a man who had made mistakes and was forever looking for a fresh start. She held his hand and spoke the words as if her speaking would make them so. "I think so, Bilby. All day I've been trying not to think so, but in my heart of hearts, that is what I think. It must mean something good." "Like maybe," Master Bilby said, his own heart swelling once again, "it means the stone finally going to roll off our head." "Stone?" Irene didn't realize she had said the word out loud. She was surprised at the sound of her own small voice. Nora and Master Bilby were now looking at her. She wanted to take it back immediately, but her mother simply nodded. "The stone that poor people like us born with, Irene, is a stone that sit right on top of our head. The one that always stopped we from rising. Irene nodded her own head, pretending to understand. So what Master Bedward going to do now? Mas Bilby asked. Nora turned back to the gentleman she was in conversation with. Sister Liz said that he given himself over to prayer and fasting. She leave him there in the room in deep concentration, reading his Bible. He was already halfway to the ceiling, and like him don't even notice. He tell her before she leave that he going to stay in that room praying and only drinking water until he understand exactly what is happening to him. That's why she was stopping by every house. She asking us to pray for him in such a time as this. Mas Bilby stood up then, suddenly and a little awkwardly, rolling his shoulders like a man preparing for a fight. Well, maybe we should do that right now. We should pray for him. Mas Bilby looked over to the corner where Irene was still staring. You come over here and take our hands. You is part of this. Irene walked over and joined the circle of prayer. And indeed, it was true what they would say years later, that all over Augusttown, even thieves were praying for Bedward. Now, 60 years later, Ma Taffy can still feel those hands, and how it had seemed to her that their texture was also the texture of prayer, coarse and trembling, warm and sure. You see, Kaya, Ma Taffy says, when Bedward take us that him going to fly, it was because his head did suddenly take him. It wasn't because he did start to believe no nonsense that he was God. It was because he really did begin to fly. I'm telling you this because I did see it for myself. With my own 2 eyes I did see it. When the past takes hold of us, it does not let go easily. We find ourselves, miraculously, in 2 places at once. And because Ma Taffy is blind, it is easier for her to shut out much of the world around her. The sun is still shining down on Augusttown. The dogs are still barking. And the radios are still loud with the voice of Mutty Perkins. But Ma Taffy remains in the past. She takes the weight off of her walking stick and eases her body back down to the seat behind her. Almost absent-mindedly, she reaches a hand out to rub Kaya's head. Upon touching it, her hand grows cold and begins to tremble. She withdraws it. It is in this way, the touching of Kaya's head, that Ma Taffy is ushered fully and violently back into the present. Yet because she now knows something of the shape of the approaching storm, the nature of the autoclaps, she is able to find within herself a place of calm. She asks her grandson in a careful and measured way, "Who has done this to you, boy? Tell me now." She asks it so calmly that Kaya forgets to cry or blubber as he had been doing earlier. He reports the simple dry-eyed truth. "Is the teacher grandma? Is Mr. St. Joseph's who cut off me dreadlocks?" End of chapter 2.